2. Alrighty, everyone, and welcome back. How are you guys? Welcome back, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, that was a little bit of a blooper there, wasn't it, Deanna?
Well, it's
Thanks
a
for
day.
laughing.
I laugh in solidarity.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, hello, 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 everyone. So good to have you back. Today, we have the incomparable Miss Amanda Dodd with us
Yay!
today. And we're
Oh,
so excited to have you here. Thank you.
thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, where would you like to begin? Well, let's start here. How's everyone feeling today?
Mm. Like a full moon is coming.
Like a
Because I
full,
was, yep.
I think I agree. I really do. It's interesting energy, I'll tell you that. Interesting out there in the world right now. But all right, Amanda. So you want to start us off? Deanna, who wants to go first?
So, Amanda,
Mhm.
what do you do?
Oh, goodness. It might be quicker at this point to ask, what don't you do? Somebody asked me the other day, do you have everything listed on your website? No,
Yeah.
no. Because it would be so much and it's confusing. So, in the short of it, I help people get towards their goals, clear the things that are in their way out of their way so they can finally make momentum.
Wow. That sounds awesome. And you
Oh,
use, I'm going to say it wrong. You use a form of the quantum healing, right?
I do. So that's one aspect of it. Before I did QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, I actually was a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I began working with trauma because that was my passion, my background, and where I wanted to make an impact. Within that training, you get a little bit of past life regression as part of it. And then lo and behold, I'm the poster child. The more I practiced, the more I received, the more I realized I had a lot to benefit from past life regression. So then next, I went ahead and explored the Dolores Cannon QHHT. I wanted a little more beyond that, so I started looking at Between Lives, which is like the Alan Chips and Michael Newton method of past lives. And from there on, I moved into soul centered healing hypnosis with spirit releasement. And it's been a journey. Now I'm currently in a training program to certify hypnotists. So it's just an
Wow.
ever evolving journey over here.
Wow. So you've really walked a walk to get, and I love the way you describe that as ever evolving because we can always learn and grow. So, if we go to
how,
basics, or did you want to say something, Ronnie?
no, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, if we go to basics, we've heard a bit about QHHT on here since Ronnie's a practitioner. We've talked about it a little bit, but then you said you moved from that to,
The soul centered healing hypnosis, and
yes.
then also life between lives, and a lot of spirit releasement. I've also been doing some organic hypnosis, which is also different, not as well known, a little more Ericksonian, conversational. It's like if coaching and hypnosis had a baby.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. So let's start with the soul centered. What exactly is that?
So, soul centered healing hypnosis is made by Laura Whitworth, and it is just a different approach with compassion, with high vibration to help people release entities. And entities can be anything from parasites, earthbound spirits, it can be ET earthbounds as well, it can be demonic forces. I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen things that were even not listed in Laura's parameters of things that we could find. It has been a fascinating experience.
Wow. So do you do this by putting somebody under hypnosis? Is that how it works?
Well, I never did like the term putting somebody under because hypnosis is something that you do naturally every single day. And if you didn't, eventually you would find yourself in psychosis pretty quickly. We
Right.
pass through that state so frequently that we don't even realize we do it. And it's those moments before sleep. That's why people get those big insights right before they're going to bed. It's as you're waking up in the morning when you have those dreams and you're like, ooh, I got to write this down. It's because you just passed through theta. It's those moments when you're doing repetitive tasks, you're folding laundry, putting away dishes, driving. Don't do road hypnosis, but it happens because it's a natural state in the brain. But yeah, we have a long session, so typically it starts with a conversation, finding about what is important to them in life, what their goals are, what's in their way, how they feel, and what questions they may have for their higher self. And then we go into a deeper session to explore that, releasing any entities or energies that ought not to be there. That can include things from past lives and sometimes parallel or even other dimensions.
So people relive these, like it's like a regression into other lives. So
It
people can
entails a
relive these.
regression. Yeah.
Hmm.
After the clearing portion, we rebuild the chakras, which is kind of unique to Laura's program, which is something that I adore. We work hand in hand with archangels, with Kuan Yin, and it's really beautiful. Just overall in energy, so much catharsis can happen. And then, yeah, we go down the road into past life regression and then eventually higher self. If higher self doesn't impromptly invite itself in before that.
Yeah, I believe this, Ronnie, those are the sessions that I had with you, right? Is that the same thing I
Mhm.
did?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll say from the point of view of a client, it's amazing. And you really do learn a lot about yourself and higher self and others pop in and start talking.
Yeah.
Um, wow, yeah, yeah.
So how long have you been on this track already, Amanda? Because it
It
sounds like you've
depends.
been doing this for a while.
Well, I grew up aware that I was a medium. I spent a whole lot of time trying to suppress that in early life until eventually I couldn't. And
What
then I
age did
became
you
a,
kind of discover that?
oh, I think I started really putting it into place around 7 or 8 because I could see
Oh, wow.
people that other people couldn't see.
Hmm.
I had memories from age 2, and I know that's kind of odd and not frequent.
Mhm.
And there were some big interventions in my life that, had they not happened, I wouldn't be here. So I think those kind of left a pretty distinct signature of I'm not like my family. I don't fit in. We're not the same. And so I became very quiet about it. I had one grandmother in spirit who kind of guided me and developed my skill set there. And then I had one living who unconsciously, non verbally guided me there. So it's like I had a grandmother on either shoulder helping me to navigate life, being
Oh.
a little different between worlds almost.
That is so amazing. So how did you get to where you are then? I mean, to start
Mhm.
all there, okay, so how did you finally decide to embrace it and get to where you are?
Oh, that took time.
Yeah.
um, I ran from it for a very, very long time until inevitably I couldn't, and it just kept catching up with me. Have you ever tried to hold a beach ball under the waves in the ocean? And it's like the
Hmm.
more you try to hold it down, the more resistance there is, the more likely it is to pop up. Mediumship kept popping up in my life everywhere that I didn't want it. So by the time I was in my mid to late 20s, I was married to someone who did not have the same beliefs as me. So again, there was another place that I couldn't share who I really was. And I would be having these late night experiences during the witching hour. You know how it is after 11 o'clock until 3 a.m., how the veil is a little thinner. We're a little more aware of things. And I would be having spirit show up and want help or be creating chaos because I didn't know how to set boundaries with it.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing that you started to do? Because you're like, okay, look, I'm tired of fighting this. All right, I agree. I'll go with the flow in some regard anyway. Of course, that's it sounds so much more simple and when you say it like that, but we all know that there's a whole journey there. But how did you begin? Well,
Well,
like, what did you do first?
I think I really lucked out in terms of finding my soulmate and leaving that marriage. And then I went into it with cards on the table of, hey, I can't explain everything about me. I'm weird. I'm sorry. This is just what I am. So as this happens, maybe just give me grace. But he did more than that. He more than gave grace. He gave support. He gave love. He gave care. He really gave me space to be authentic. And the more that I had that, then it was easier to say, okay, well, I can't be the only. I did some research before that. So around 16, I started looking at all the world religions and tried to find where I fit. And I did find some things. But without having that secure, nurturing kind of container, it makes it hard to really explore and open up. So I think my
Mhm.
spouse was really the big thing. And so the more I became aware of it, the more he encouraged me to go do things. And so in about 2010, 2011, I started my Reiki journey. It was something that I had wanted
Ah.
to do from the time I was 16, but my parents didn't agree with and wouldn't have happened under their roof. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
but with him, I was able to finally explore that, and that just opened all the doors. Be careful with that Reiki stuff.
It can be quite a game changer.
Yes,
Yes,
it can.
Yes.
Yes, it can. Mhm. So you
major
started with
door-opener.
Reiki, and where did Reiki take you?
It took me to the emotion code, to the body code, to dowsing, and then opening more my mediumship. And then actually contact with ETs began. I wasn't expecting that, never even had an interest, but there it was. And then I lucked out at one point and found a really supportive group of people back when Blog Talk Radio was a thing who wanted me to help them on their network. It was called Angel Whisper Healing Network or something like that. And so then I ended up eventually having a radio show where I would
Wow.
read
Oh,
people
wow.
online and live, and eventually I got really really good with everything. I kept taking more classes, doing more learning, opened up angel intuition, and then went full on into studying mediumship with some really profound and wonderful people. And then there came a time somewhere in there where it's like, I don't want to be enabling people remaining disempowered. And I think when there are psychics and mediums, people can do that. They can hand over their power and say, let me come to you with my questions rather than doing that soul searching and making some decisive action. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to pull away from that because I got very popular and it was a little scary. Sometimes I scared myself with how accurate it was. And it's like, ooh, do
Mm.
I want this life? No, I don't. And at that same time, I had been through a substantive amount of narcissistic abuse, and I knew that I was healing and I had PTSD. And so I found a coach on YouTube that I fully adored, and he used hypnosis as part of one of his programs. And
Mm.
then I thought, I'd like to become a coach. I would rather empower people than be giving them answers or possibly having them be dependent on me. And so I went for a training program in coaching, and that's where I got my first 100 hours of hypnosis.
Wow.
And as I did that, I had a wonderful school called SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, and I attended virtually before COVID. So I was already used to doing things online. With each class in SWIHA, what they do is they have a series of assignments so that you are on the receiving end of each thing that you're practicing and learning how to do. I was practicing with a weight loss client, and out of nowhere, I began to lose weight. Not because of receiving sessions, but because I facilitated for somebody else.
Wow.
And at that point in my life, I had given up on that being a possibility. It wasn't even on my radar that that could happen for me. So then when it did, that really made me take pause and think, there's more here. I want to go a little
Mm.
deeper. And so then I went back for the whole on clinical certified training.
Wow. Can we
Wow.
just jump back for a second to when you started having the ET experiences? Because I'm a little interested in that. Like, what, what were they like? What did you experience?
I will say that angel intuition opened first,
Hmm.
but not long after some of my Reiki attunements, I started having experiences with like different colored orbs floating around my room at night. And never having encountered that before, I kind of like froze up and didn't know what to do with that. And so I lucked out. I met a wonderful psychic who was local at the time. And I asked her what was happening. And she was able to kind of tap into my experience without me saying it. And she was able to say, that was an ET. It came to see you from very far away because when you got that Reiki attunement, it shot your vibration up and it sent out a signal.
It's like a light comes out of your crown chakra and all the moths start showing up.
Right.
That
That is a great analogy, Deanna. That is a good, that's,
actually the my Reiki trainer told me that. So I'm just
oh,
kind of copying what somebody else said, but it's
that's okay.
absolutely,
It's super true.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
So true.
that is
I didn't
so
get that
cool.
notice. So I always joke that one day I'm going to come out with a book of things your Reiki trainer didn't tell you.
Yes, 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 yes. That would be a,
Yes.
I would buy that book. I'm just saying.
Your hands accidentally touch someone and they jerk away because they're so hot all the time. That was one I didn't expect. But so you had these experiences with the orbs. Did it ever go any farther? Like, did they actually
Yeah.
make contact with you?
Absolutely. So I want to say it was during my last Karuna attunements where I woke up the next day and it was the wildest thing. I was having a dream, but it felt like way too vivid. And I was experiencing what looked like a horseshoe kind of ship outside the window. And it was almost as though I was out of my body looking at the window and they had like fireworks going off and they were having a whole celebration. And they were like, "You did it." And then I heard like Ashtar command, and I'm like, "What is that?" And so eventually I had to actually look it up. And then when I found pictures of that same ship that I had saw in my dreams, I was like, "This is too wild." But the funny thing was that day when I woke up, I had a sticker on my knee. It was a star. And it was almost like it was placed there as a validation to say, yes, this was more than a dream. You had an
Wow.
experience.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. Since
So,
then,
oh,
I've
go
gone
ahead.
on
I'm
to
sorry.
study Akashic Records with Debbie Solaris and then the Galactic Akashic Records. So now I understand a whole lot more. I'm able to access a whole lot more, but those doors opened and I'm going to blame Reiki.
May as well.
Yeah, Reiki has a tendency to open up a whole lot of things.
Oh,
I can attest
yeah.
to that.
It's amazing though. I mean, it opens
That's not a
doors, it turns on
complaint.
lights. Yeah, no, this is definitely a positive thing. And it sounds like you really had a ton of awakening with that. Almost like to me it sounds like you had a gate closed that needed to be open, that maybe had some pressure behind it. And as soon as it did, it's like the floodgates are open and here comes everything all at once. Wow, that's so cool.
Well, when I think about it, the whole reason I went to Reiki was because I was a caregiver and I was having extreme burnout, and I just really needed something to help me maintain myself. I needed it for the self care.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
sure enough, it was a vibration raiser, right?
mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned something, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Karuna?
Hmm.
What is that?
It's just another lineage of Reiki. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
Usui, and then there's Karuna. There's also Holy Fire. I've gone on to do Kundalini Reiki. It's just different lineages, different paths, different teachers with some additional concepts and then often extra symbols. Karuna is all about Kuan Yin and that compassionate action
Mm,
energy. It's very,
okay.
very soft, very gentle, very beautiful, very powerful.
I believe
Yeah.
that. I I just never heard of it, so thank you. Yeah.
Kuan
Do you,
Yin came to my Reiki. I did Yusui. Yusui. I always pronounce it wrong. That's the only one that I've done, but she was there at every single attunement and beyond. So I love that. I love the interconnectedness of all of it. You know, there's symbols everywhere and slight differences, but when you pull it together, it's just that whole energy. But to take all the ones that you did, to combine all of those into one practice, kind of, right? Um, That
It's
sounds so
amazing.
enriching. Yeah, yeah. It sounds like there's,
Actually,
yeah.
Kundalini was more recently, and it was just, it kept coming up. Go back to Reiki, get more Reiki. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, am I need to be practicing this again? And it was more, no, you just need this ignition of vibration. This is going to help you get to the next little bit. So it is very much an activator in terms of vibration for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you. So do you channel by chance?
I have the ability, but I don't enjoy it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't enjoy it, especially not with entities that don't have bodies now because of spirit releasement. I'm pretty sure that's not meant to be for me. Um, but as you've kind of seen when I receive a session, uh, angels can come out and can fluently
There's
share things and
yes. Yeah. She's yeah, it's pretty amazing. All right. So what is your favorite thing about all of this?
Hmm. It's the unexpected gifts, the bonuses, as I like to call them. So a really good story, if I have got time to share it.
You have all the
Oh
time
yeah.
you want,
Oh
honey.
yeah.
We don't have time frames here.
Yes. This is one of my favorite experiences so far. One, because as a practitioner, we don't always get to see how the benefits of the work we do unfolds unless it's with
True that.
someone that you're able to live with. So when my spouse wanted to give up his 20-year tobacco chewing habit, first of all, I was terrified because I didn't really deal with addictions.
Mhm.
And even though I had the training, I just didn't really want to do it. But he wouldn't have anybody else. And I thought, "Ugh, I hate addictions. This isn't my thing, but okay, I want to liberate you from this and not be having him spit tobacco in a bottle with saliva."
Yeah.
Right.
Yuck.
Um, and so as we began, we had a 2-hour session, explored some things in childhood, and then got to a portion where I realized he was using the chewing tobacco to fill the part of his soul that had been taken. It was missing. And he was using the tobacco to fill that space that felt empty in his body. I'd already
Huh.
had the skills for soul retrieval. I was so lucky and grateful. So I went ahead and retrieved his soul. His ex had it from part of the abuse that occurred within their marriage. And she wasn't readily willing to give it back, even though that was her higher self. It took a bit of negotiating, got it back. He gave up the smoking. That's not the kicker. The kicker is this is a man who almost missed the birth of his child because they couldn't wake him in the morning. He never woke up happy or fully energized. He was always groggy and couldn't remember things. The
Hmm.
day after his session, he woke up at 7 a.m., bright eyed, bushy tailed, and bewildered of, oh my God, what did you do to me? And that went
Mm,
on for a very, very long time. I feel like maybe 2.5 years before he kind of settled into something a little more reasonable in terms of waking up, but he still wakes up with decent energy, none of the grogginess. We didn't expect that. So when you do
Wow.
this work, whether it's hypnosis, whether it's QHHT or SCHH or whatever the hell abbreviation you want to call it, your client is
quantum
always going to win the
healing.
lottery. We just don't know how.
Mm, I
Wow,
agree with that.
that's powerful. But it makes sense. I mean, energy goes through everything. And healing is really, I don't know, my thought is that healing is directed by the energy, not directed by the practitioner.
Mhm.
We just ask for it and then may it do work to the client's highest power or highest need, you know?
I think the practitioner vibration really makes the difference. I mean, if you're practicing and you don't believe that anything can happen,
Right.
only so much energy can come through you.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with that. I 100%. And I will also tell you this. In my experience, Dolores Cannon used to always say they don't give you more than you can handle and they spoon feed you. True statement. That is so true. However, you can only heal to your own as the practitioner. You can only assist to your level of understanding readiness and ability. When I say ability, like it's going to push your own paradigms and it's going to challenge your own unconscious bias a lot of times. And I
Even
know
as a
that
reader.
from my perspective. And I've grown so much through this work, kind of like you were talking about, you get the healings too, the benefits, of course, and that's amazing. And I'm not discounting that by any, oh, there it goes, there's the feels. I'm not discounting that by any stretch of the means at all. But let me tell you, the growth that I have personally, my personal growth, because this does challenge every single one of my paradigms that I didn't even realize I had, like those unconscious biases, like they will show up. And then you got to go through, and then that's when you got to go in and do your own work. And then the next time you go and do, somebody is like, "Boo!" The fireworks, like you were talking about earlier. Man, it's incredible, incredible, incredible. So yeah. Whew, I got all up in my feels on that one. Whew. There's some energy with that one.
Now who's
Speaking,
channeling?
well,
Yeah.
yes, thanks for calling that right on out. Thanks. Um, yes, I believe that to be
Have you ever known me to do anything different?
of course not. Of course not. That's mwah, it's mwah, mwah, mwah. It's one of the things that, honey, I wouldn't have a tribe who didn't call stuff out, dude. Are you kidding me? Um, I forgot what I was gonna say. I was gonna say something, but yeah, I was thinking, yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way, darling. Are you kidding me? Um,
We were talking about channeling.
yeah, there was something else that I was gonna say. Give me a Deanna, what you got while I think?
Well, when you said that when you're in the session as the receiver, did you say you channel the angels?
Yeah.
Wow.
If prompted, yeah. One of my guides is Uriel. He
Hmm.
will often come forward with additional insights that maybe my higher self wouldn't have looked at. And he'll tend to call me on my stuff, whereas my higher self might be a little more permissive. He's a
Hmm.
little more upfront. And I hate hearing the recordings because it's a noticeable like voice shift and it's a little eerie to hear and to look
Wow.
back and to be like, oh, that came through. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, where is your mind when you're doing it? Are you conscious of it or do you have to be reminded
Yeah.
later?
No, I'm for the most part, I stay pretty surface. I'm pretty
Mhm.
present, but as he's coming through, I'm getting the full visual. So as he's communicating, I'm seeing the things, so I'm able to hear it, to witness it. Occasionally, I hear the left mind kind of retorting and arguing, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Hmm.
And he's quick to let me know. By the way, that's a limiting belief. Knock that off. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that when my guides come through, I'm right here in the back left corner of my head, and I'm always here. And as you know, Ronnie's seen it. First time I channeled was with Ronnie in a session, and I know what's being said, and I think I'm hearing it and saying it at the same time. I'm not quite sure, um, but I'm just curious because I will listen to the whole thing and then I will forget it. What within minutes? I think I just don't remember it. Like, but I know it when it's going on, and it's such an interesting feeling. And to imagine the channeling of a higher being such as an angel, I mean, that sounds like I think I'd be humbled or something if that happened. I'd be like, "Whoa, I can't believe this." So, what a wonderful experience to be able to do that and them knowing your limits and them understanding, how far you would want to go with it or, because it's not necessarily your thing to do, but that's just great. I mean, that's amazing. That's wonderful. And wow, I don't know. That's got my mind going. Um,
Kind of similar to you, I'm aware of being more towards the back, and the
yeah.
body feels different at that moment. Like I feel here, but distant,
Yes.
but
Like
I
yeah.
can see everything that he's talking about. And so when he's answering the questions of the practitioner, I'm getting the full visual of if he's making a recommendation, I'm seeing bottles of things, I'm seeing
Yeah.
ways that he'd like me to practice something. And it's like, oh, okay, it's a full on lesson in here.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of watching a movie, narrating a movie, and kind of in it, but sort of. and
I wouldn't
that,
say
yeah.
narrating because it's definitely not
Well, I mean, like the
not my
sound is coming
wording.
out of the throat. Yes,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I'm not, yeah, that's what I meant. It's like you're just kind of talking whatever's being said, but you're just kind of there. You can feel your mouth move, but you don't know what's about to come out. And then when they go and they say something that you've never heard of, or that is like, what? I never thought of that before. And then it's like, oh, okay. Okay, cool. So yeah. And do you ever have clients that spontaneously channel when you are caring for them?
Yeah.
What is that like?
Oh, sometimes it can be really palpable. My favorite client to work on, honest to God, is my spouse. He doesn't always let me, but he is a somnambulist, which means he remembers absolutely nothing. And even
Mm,
if it's basic past life regression, he gets fully into that being. And so one of his lives, he was actually a slave in the whipping fields and tobacco,
Mm.
and he took on a southern drawl. And even his face looked like it was kind of changing. Like, he has an ability to really step all the way out, and so sometimes it just raises like the hair on my arms. And I've learned that from now on, if I ever work on him again, I'm having a video session. I'm
Oh
recording it.
yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, maybe it's because do you think the trust between the two of you really allows him to feel comfortable enough to just let the experience happen to as much a degree as it will, rather than maybe somebody who doesn't know you very well or in a first session might be like, okay, I'll do this, but I'm a little hesitant.
I
Do you
think
think?
I think level of consciousness plays a role, and he's really not into spiritual. He's not into woo at all. He's even atheist a little bit. At least, certainly before me, he would have called himself atheist. Now he's a little more open to wife helping with things and being open to things turning up in his favor. But before that, he really had no beliefs like that. And I think because of his consciousness level, that's why he's a somnambulist. Because if you look at the kids now, when you get a cute little whippersnapper under 20, they go into trance like that. They're just flowing with it. They know all of their different aspects and their guides and how to connect with them and who was in what past life. And there's no filter. It just all comes. It's just
Wow.
all out. Yeah. But they remember everything. Different level of consciousness.
So do you work with kids or do you generally stay towards adult?
I aim towards 18 plus, but occasionally a parent will reach out and say, "Hey, we just, like a little bit of support. Maybe this would help." And
Mhm,
it's always
mhm.
fascinating to see what comes forward. They get insights so fast. They have so many fewer barriers in
I agree with
terms
that.
of what they can reach. Yeah.
these kids that come in today, man, I tell you all the time, they are just, they're amazing. I saw a reel. I was actually just talking to somebody about this, who Xceralynn, that's her name, Xceralynn, and I'm doing a shout out right here in this moment. Hello, Xceralynn. Um, I saw a reel not too long ago, and I was telling her about it with Harrison Ford. And he said this generation, and I'm just super paraphrasing, don't get it twisted on the intricacies of what he said, but basically, these kids coming in today have got it all right, you know, and they're opening our minds and they're doing amazing things and they are breaking down a whole bunch of barriers that, our generation would have never even thought of questioning. And he, at the end of it, this one gets me. At the end of it, he says, and the best thing we can do is simply get out of their way.
Mhm.
And honey, let me tell you, I was in my room on my phone. I got up and I was like, you don't even know this, but I'm giving you a standing ovation in this moment. It was just, and that plays a lot with how these kids and the things that it's amazing. It's just amazing. And I know me personally, I look at my little granddaughters, that 4-year old, the two still a little young, but trust me, she's got some stuff going on too. But that 4-year old, ooh, whole nother ball game, man. She's gonna change some stuff. I know she is. Yeah, these kids today are just amazing.
Well, I think they're holding their connections longer. I think they're holding their spirit connection longer. And I think generationally, we've kind of grown into that. I mean, I've been on my soapbox about all the generational changes a lot, so I'm not going to go there this time. But I think that this newest generation, from everything I've heard, is just bringing in so much spirit and bringing in so much healing and so much connection that they are the next generation. I mean, they're going to be our
They so
leaders. They're
are.
going to get us through the shift, or actually help us after we get through the shift as they grow. So, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a lot. I'm excited to see how it all works out.
Oh, me too. That is go
They've
ahead, Amanda.
definitely got fewer barriers. They've definitely got more memory,
Yeah.
more access, and it's because they have the tolerance and the ability to use it, whereas we didn't. I had enough with what I
Right.
had with mediumship. I can't imagine if I'd remembered past lives as well and everything else. Oh no, thank you.
Well, it wasn't as supportive back, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but it hasn't been as supportive at any time, I think, before this one. I think the world consciousness is shifting as the ascension is happening, and yes, it's raising, and people are looking for other answers than traditional ones that they've always had. Bring in the new kids who are going to be raised in that thought, who are going to be raised to look in other places than, where your grandmother went every Sunday or whatever. Um, and really to find all of that. And yeah, that connection with spirit, that maintaining those chords, I think is what's going to help us a lot. And it's going to be so exciting to see.
Hmm.
So exciting.
That is one of the things I'm looking forward to, man. I've said it once, I've said it a million times, Deanna. You and I talk about it so much, how all the things that are changing and what's it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rocky road until it all finally settles down. But
We'll get through it. It's a rocky
once
road
it
now. We'll get through it.
settles,
Mhm.
it's gonna be amazing, dude. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So Amanda, what are some of the things that I guess I don't want to say what are some of the big things, the big breakthroughs that really, really get you going and that you see in this line of work that you're like, this is why, this is my those whys.
Oh, there have been a lot. Here's one that I'm particularly passionate about because I had that emergence as a medium from a child. As I stepped away from it and moved towards hypnosis, eventually what started happening was because I wasn't being a medium, spirits started coming into my sessions. And what I learned was actually how to develop mediums through hypnosis. And then also how to just have more sessions where my clients are then their own medium. They no longer need me for a reading. Instead, I'm guiding them, I'm getting them to that place, I'm setting the vibration, and then they're just in their experience with their loved one, having the catharsis, the conversations that need to happen, and doing the healing. And the beautiful thing is, after they do that session, more often not, they're able to maintain the communication because now they've gained a skill. That one,
Mm.
that one brings me life.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, hey, make the goal to put all of the mediums out of business. I'm a medium. I think if people could connect themselves, it'd be healthier for them too, but you're actually doing that. I love that.
As a standalone session, which is, I feel like so important because often we'll get a glimpse here and there in some of the other quantum work that we do. But when the intent is just to do that, the level of depth we can get, the level of traumas and generational and ancestral things that can be resolved are massive.
That's
How long,
great.
out of
So,
curiosity, how long does one of those sessions take?
It could be anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, but ideally, I like 2 hours. I like to take my time. I don't want to be rushed. I want to make sure that they have all the time to really be there and soak it all in because that vibration is healing. It's so important.
Hmm. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah. I got to speak on it last year at Hypno Thoughts Live, which is one of the biggest conferences in the US. And I only had about 20 minutes, and man, it was tough to sum up in 20 minutes. But my big plea was that more people come out and do this work because When we do this work, for one thing, that fear of death is just gone. And what happens is people start to fully live. And then,
Right,
as you
because
said,
yeah.
I love
then
the way you
everybody
said
is
that.
their own medium. They're maintaining their connections, their relationships. It's just a much more multidimensional way to live.
You are so eloquent. I appreciate how eloquent you are. Good stuff. Because it's like, boom, there it is. And I'm like, I got nothing.
So where do you see
That's
yourself
so cool.
where do you see yourself moving forward now? I mean, you've done all these things. Are you just going to let go with the flow of it, or are you going to move into something different, or?
Well, currently I'm taking a train the trainer course, which means I'm going to be able to certify hypnotherapists. But my intention with that isn't just to certify hypnotherapists, it's to launch my own modality so that there can be more practitioners offering mediumship in the way that I do it. I call it loved ones in spirit.
Mhm.
And I'd love to see more practitioners practicing that and more people connecting to their loved ones so that we're cutting down on grief. We're having more connection, more love, more support going through life.
Oh, that
So
sounds
that's a big
wonderful.
goal
Yeah,
of mine.
I'm
Yes.
in. I'm number one.
I'm number two.
Yeah,
But
I
I mean, like I keep harking back to what you said about well, I don't know if this was your exact quote, but about people who almost become dependent on
Mhm.
others doing readings for them and how cutting out that middleman just allows them to make all of that healing. And that is so true because if you if somebody comes back over and over and over again as a medium, you're almost like, okay, we got to back off a little bit. But how can you do that if you're hearing the message anyways? How can you say, no, I'm not going to give that message? And you end up kind of in a bit of a circle with these people just really kind of grasping on because you're the connection that fills makes that link for them. So to teach them to do that themselves basically enables them to have conversations with whoever they want whenever they need it and to be able to access that themselves. I find that so healthy and so healing and such a big part of healing in our society and our world right now is to be able to make those connections because I think people are always looking for connection and it sounds like what you are on the trajectory for that is going to be amazing. So definitely keep us in mind. But also when you get through the schooling and you start all this, let us know because we will have you on again to tell us all about that and
Oh,
how it
mhm.
goes because that sounds fun. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
I think for me, it's more empowering
Hmm.
because when someone goes to a medium or a psychic, and don't get me wrong, I love mediums, I love psychics, I still do that work, I still attend fairs, I still show up. But there's something about hearing it directly from your loved one that a medium can never fully give. And I think
I
when they
agree.
haven't received the message exactly the way they need it to, because there's a middleman, that's why they come back, because they haven't quite hit the note that they needed to hear. But when it's them having that encounter, it's undeniable.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. That is just wonderful work that you're doing. Just wonderful.
Okay, so that's next. And after that, or
Ooh,
I
well,
feel like
I've
you
got.
have so many. I'm like, let's roll up those sleeves. Let's see what else you got there, girl. Come on.
If we listen to Uriel, apparently I'll be writing books, but I'm going to say no, and I'm going to try to keep it a podcast, but we'll see if I win that battle.
That's
I wonder who's
right.
gonna win.
Perfect time to talk about that.
Yeah.
You have your own podcast.
Yeah, the whole reason I have the podcast is so I don't have to write the books. I
I
found
love
a
that.
Okay.
loophole and I'm trying to work it.
Okay. I understand that. I do. I understand that. Okay.
Next, you know that I've got breathwork training coming up because, again, that whole
We
aspect of
talked about that.
trauma and working with trauma is still a big passion of mine.
Mm,
I still take people entrenched in trauma. I am certified to help with nervous system work, so I do a lot of that. And that circular breath work is just the missing piece. And I can't wait to incorporate that in.
very cool. Very cool. Yeah. You want to tell us about that class that you're taking?
Yeah. So it
I
is a
was super
circular.
interested in this, Deanna.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It is a circular breath. The first time I experienced a circular breath was, oh my goodness, I was at the NATH hypnosis conference, I want to say about 2 years ago, and I still had the somatic aspects of PTSD. I was still doing things like locking the jaw and having muscle armoring, like the body was still responding as though it was in trauma, even though I had done the mental and the emotional aspects of healing and I'd reduced all the triggers, the body was still stuck there. And this beautiful woman put on this amazing after conference end of day workshop. And she just had everybody in the room. First, we did a little bit of movement, a little bit of dance, a little bit of shaking. And basically, what you're doing is you're trying to get the body kind of worked up and activated as though there's an active threat that you're kind of running from. And so we might do a little bit of hyperventilating. And then eventually she has everybody kind of lay down and just begin this circular breath. And it's tough at first because you're going to be breathing possibly for 20 plus minutes and it's an open mouth breath. And you are filling up the whole of your being with air and then you're just allowing it to kind of fall out, almost like you're fogging a mirror. As you do that, there's no space between the breath. So you're quickly inhaling that breath that you've just exhaled, which means you're taking in some of that CO2. And that can begin to create a deep, deep trance. I went so deep, I didn't even know that was possible, honest to God. I was seeing sacred geometry, and Metatron was talking to me, and I wanted my body to be in dolphin pose of yoga because I needed a heart opener. I was seeing colors.
Wow.
And I had a really hard time accessing joy before that moment because my body was still locked in to that trauma. I went home to the hotel that day floating on a cloud, and the next day, no tension in the face. I had done yoga, I had done sensory deprivation, I had done you name it, I had done it. But it was the breath work that finally pulled that last bit of somatic trauma and some hypnosis because then the following day, one of my long-term favorite teachers who I had at Sweeha was at the conference. She did a hypnosis on integrating shadow. That whole day, the only thing that came up was that somatic piece. So I got to interface with that directly. So the breath work and that hypnosis piece, boom, put it into place for me. And since that moment, I've been looking for that training. But that beautiful woman, her training that she took was over 10K. And I'm just like, there's no way. There's no way. So I've spent 2 years looking. And the funny thing, and Ronnie, you know this, the funny thing was I had probably about 6 months ago, maybe closer to a year even, I had an SCHH session. And one of my questions to higher self was, who do I go with for breath work? And I had two different men in mind of who I might train with. Higher self came through and laughed and said, oh, neither of them. She needs to wait a few months. She's going to find something. It'll be perfect. Oh, it'll be a woman teacher and it'll be cheaper. And I'm just like, okay, sold. But
Yeah.
it didn't fully take stock in it. It's like you don't know how much you can really rely on everything that comes through sometimes. There's always that little bit of doubt, even when you are a hypnotist having your own session. And sure enough, I was browsing email just about a week and a half ago now. And there I saw one, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is right in my backyard. Under $500.
Mm.
Woman teacher. It's like, let me go have a class and see how it goes. It was exactly what I wanted. And again, I went right back to bliss.
Nice.
Mm.
Wow. So now you're going to be a practitioner throughout this class, right?
Yeah.
That's so
That's
cool.
amazing. Yeah. Well, I mean, spirit brings you what you need when you need it and when you're ready. And I mean, all those cliches are actually based in reality, is that, and the good thing that you listened. Because like you said, there's always a little bit of doubt. That's why I always say, show me, give me a sign, do something. And to just trust like that and have it come true just reaffirms that faith in spirit or source or higher self or, whatever you call whatever it is that's guiding you. How exciting.
Mhm. I love that you brought up the topic because this seems to be, I don't know, this keeps being a reoccurring theme in my world right now for some reason is the trauma being stored in the body. Would you be willing to talk a little bit more about that? Because I explain that to people, but I want to hear your perspective, please.
Yeah. By now, I'm sure you've already read it, but it's a book by Bessel van der Kolk talking about the body keeps the score.
Mhm.
And he outlines several case studies of that, of how the body really does have like a physical memory of things that have happened. And when we heal, whether you're seeing a therapist or you're even doing hypnosis, that is a top down approach to trauma. Other ways to work through trauma are bottom up. So when we're thinking bottom up, we're talking about yoga, somatic experiencing, really moving into the body. So when I practice hypnosis now, I'm very mindful to always bring in the somatic for that reason. And sometimes when people have trauma, they can't put into words what they're feeling, whether that's emotion because they've got numbness to it, or the whole concept of it is just mentally too much because they're overwhelmed. Then we go
Mm.
right into the body of, okay,
Say it
where
again,
is that in the
overwhelmed.
body? Yeah. And the body always knows. And we don't need them to overthink it. I don't want them to go to logic anyway. That's not what needs to speak. So we give the body a voice in that way. And that's what's worked really efficiently for me. And so that's what I like to do for many of my clients. I've actually signed up for another new class. I know I said I would stop it.
I
It's a
think it's really
struggle.
hard. It's a struggle.
I had another SCHH session today and he's like, "Does she have any addictions?" And higher self said, "No." And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, we might have a problem with the continued learning, but
Yeah.
okay. But I did sign up from Richard Nongard. He has a class called somatic hypnosis.
Hmm. Yeah, that
You,
sounds interesting.
you may want to get in on that.
Richard.
Nongard. He's actually one of the ICBCH association
Oh
where I'm
yeah.
taking my training
Uh-huh.
from.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm familiar. That's where one of mine came. Two of mine came from actually.
Yeah.
And you said this is a somatic rather.
Somatic hypnosis.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But the
I'm
body
taking a lot of
has
notes with you.
muscle memory. The body
Yes.
holds experiences and vibrations as we've learned in SCHH. And if the body can pick up and hold an entity, why wouldn't it also do the same with trauma? Like kind of like a snapshot in time.
I find for me personally, I find that they're always related.
Mhm.
Where there's an entity, there's a trauma. Where there's a trauma, there's 9 times out of 10,
Mhm.
9.9 really, there's something attached to it. It's very rare that where there's a trauma, there's not something attached to it. But definitely if there's an entity, there's an attachment.
They need that doorway in, right?
Yeah. And the only reason they're not
Yeah.
there is because maybe you've had the releasement of the
Yeah.
entities and somebody just didn't hit the trauma. That's when I found that, but yeah, man, it's yeah,
Not
always. And they go
not to
back and
be
forth.
not to be overly obnoxious, but there is another modality I practice that I highly recommend. It is called IEMT, integral eye movement
I have
technique,
heard of that, yes.
and that's
Is that
powerful for trauma too.
is that the same as EMDR?
No, it does work with the eyes, but it's made of different principles and models. And so with IEMT, I'm not taking away the memory, but rather I'm taking away the learned response that the client has. And so it could be,
Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
it could be that a client is used to having a certain thing triggered, and when that trigger is activated, then they go into like a collapse or a freeze mode,
Hmm.
or maybe they go into anger or anxiety. And so we work with the eyes. There are several little steps that we do. There are different models within it that I get to play with. One is the identity model, which I love because then we explored how trauma had changed them, had shaped them and who they are now. And we bring them kind of into present, which is really powerful because what trauma does is takes you out of present.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings them right back here and now. But we get to kind of collapse all of those little triggers and all of the little emotions. And sometimes the somatic stuff can be in there too.
So is this the eye movement and it triggers a specific place, kind of?
See,
That's what I've heard of it, but I'm not
that's more
sure.
EMDR.
Okay. Okay.
Whereas IMT, it really is quite different. So often when somebody comes to me, they're working on something specific. Let me try to draw on one who was recent. I have a client who's absolutely lovely. She's a piano teacher. And in the past year, she experienced a really tragic miscarriage.
Mm.
And in less than 2 months, she also became pregnant again. So she didn't really have the time to process that grief and everything that happened. And what she was aware of is every time she would sit down to work with one of her students, she would feel incredible dread. She was exhausted, no energy, didn't want to do the work, was losing the passion, didn't understand what was happening. As we're working through IEMT, we're going through all of the different times when she feels that dread. Several memories are coming up from earlier times in her life, of course. The key one that came up was she had the miscarriage at the piano while teaching a student. She failed
Oh.
to mention that. And so, of
Mm.
course, when she's back there in that space teaching a student, the body's going to recognize that something horrific happened there. And that was very hard. And then, of course, she wasn't present with her current pregnancy. So she was having a hard time feeling joy. And I'd asked her, have you started a baby room? Are you buying some clothes? Are you thinking of names? And she couldn't be present with it until we did IEMT. So for her, we did about 3 sessions, four actually. She just had her fourth. So we did 4 sessions total, which is kind of a lot for IEMT, but that was a really traumatic and very recent thing that happened. That
Uh,
was awful.
Mm.
And some of the best things that happened was yes, we worked through some childhood stuff. We worked through some recent stuff. We also worked through anticipatory anxiety and dread. So those moments where she's thinking she's not going to have the energy she needs to get through, we then dissolved those things. Now she's enjoying her career again. She's starting to find joy in her pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing to be able to get over that because there's so many people that don't bounce back from things like that. Or, I mean, any tragedy, there's people that don't always bounce back, and to be able to have the ability to do that and to show people,
Mm.
and get it out there on this forum, on your podcast, on everything, that there are things out there that are not going to be your standard norm, go to the doctor and take an anti-anxiety pill or whatever, but there's other things that can complement that. There's other modalities and things that can be done. I mean, people need to know that this is out there, and you're really you're bringing it out there. You're doing, you do your podcast, you're on ours, but also it sounds like you're really making a difference for people. And that's just, I just keep saying it. That's wonderful. And the whole idea to heal everybody, right? And to do it in a positive way that is not like traumatic, where they would do, like, oh, if you're scared of bees, so here, we're going to stand in a room of bees, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
instead to allow people to approach it as they can in their time. Like you said, four
Meeting them where they're at.
sessions. Yeah. And 4 sessions might be a lot under standard, but the truth is that if this is what she needs, then you'll be able to give it to her. And more people need to know that this kind of healing is out there, that this kind of healing is available.
I think the part that really moves me the most is it wasn't just the mental and emotional shift. There was like physical nausea and discomfort she had that also dissipated through that work. So we're really getting it on all levels, which I find really exciting.
That's
Mm-hmm.
so
The
great.
the better part was just the way she started to look forward to like, ooh, I've got an ultrasound coming up. And instead of it being a thing of anxiety, she's like, I'm
Aww.
actually excited. And it's like that's where you should be.
Right.
Last time I saw her, we did an episodic time exercise which literally takes them from that moment of trauma and brings them forward into here, into now. And that's where all of our power is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, trauma will hold you. It will bind you and it will hold you wherever it happens and keep at least part of you in that space. So how important it is to be able to move out of it and to realize that you are who you are now, and part of that is based on that. And that's not always bad. Maybe some of your strength came from that. Maybe some of your personal power was grown in that moment, however horrific it was. So by bringing someone forward, it sounds like you're really allowing them to move through it with whatever they need to take with it, leave the rest behind, and come into who they are, authenticity.
One
Mhm.
thing I do want to note with IEMT, they don't have to relive the trauma.
Good.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the ways that it differs from EMDR. EMDR, they are smack in the middle of it again,
Hmm.
experiencing it all. Whereas IEMT, they don't even have to tell me the details. There are ways to work completely around that.
I
So
was
when
going
they
to
have
ask
a
is
memory come up, I say, let's give it a nickname, label it. It could be anything they want.
So that's good for people who are survivors of,
Oh,
say, abuse or something where they can't even verbalize it yet. You can get them to the point where they're maybe be able to, or at least try to deal with it in some way.
how
That's
yes.
do we get
powerful.
this more in the mainstream? Because I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking from my perspective, this poor woman, Amanda, like, dude, if she would have gone to a typical doctor,
She has been. She has a therapist.
what are they going to do? They're going to
Right.
prescribe drugs. They're going to tell her just to get over it, or however they're going to treat it. I mean, don't get it twisted. There's going to be people who have compassion and empathy for her, but to get her the help to, that's just
Mhm.
not available. There's not enough
Yeah.
empathy, there's not enough compassion, there's not enough drugs to give her the same
Yeah.
fully let go transformative experience that you did
Even when she showed
without
up.
more pain.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? You don't have to relive it. You can go through this gently and softly. And anybody who knows Kuan Yin, you know about some gentle and softness. I know she's got to be in there somewhere, honey, because yeah, that sounds like a whole Kuan Yin modality to me personally, because I've just, she's amazing. Um, but I mean, like, how that's the question right there is how do we get things like this more into the mainstream?
So
Because I mean,
there
that's a
was,
game changer.
yeah, there's a quick thought that I wanted to share. And then I'll talk more about
Yes,
that
please.
because the creator of this modality is working very, very hard to do that. And I would love to be able to give him a shout out so people know where to look for
Yeah,
him.
yes, please.
Absolutely.
The main thing I was thinking of when she came to see me, she didn't even mention the miscarriage. So I
Hmm.
didn't even have that information as we were working through. Then it surfaced. So
Cause
even
she,
if a client's
yeah.
going to a doctor or a therapist, they don't always have the conscious awareness of what is at the bottom of it. And that's why we need to work with the subconscious mind. That's
Hmm.
why we
Hmm.
need to work with the whole person.
Well,
Hmm.
that's the complementary and holistic way of doing it. I mean, I'm going to be the first person to tell you go to a doctor and go to a therapist. Absolutely. But if you can find somebody who can also complement that with some other healing modality, go to them too. Make it a group effort, instead of having like science here and alternative therapies here, why not put them together and create a whole and then help the patient on all those different levels? I mean, we're not just a body, we're not just a brain, we are a whole mixture of soul, spirit, and emotion and experience. So, yeah, getting it out there and bringing the more complementary treatments out into the mainstream, especially in times of chaos, especially in times of change. So
Yeah.
important to bring that out. So, I know you were going to touch on that, and I just went off on a rant, but
Okay.
No, it is. It's important. I think you're right on. There's
Yeah.
absolutely a place for it. There's a need for it. I mean, when I think about all of the first responders, oh, how I'd love it
yes.
if they all knew IEMT or NLP or some hypnosis. I mean, there was this one time I got a random call from Google as a new hypnotist, and I was so excited. It was one of my first Google calls. It was this poor gentleman who was on the autistic spectrum who had just been sexually assaulted, who was in an emergency room, and he was panicked because he was a black man and the person who assaulted him was a white girl. And he knew the optics of how that would look. And he was panicking, thinking they wanted this test to put against him. And who does he call? Brand new baby hypnotist Amanda, who fortunately had the skills to calm him down, to help him manage everything that was happening so that the nurses could do their job. And then at the end, the nurse was like, "Are you his sister?" "No, I'm just the random girl he called on Google
That's
who is trauma
amazing.
informed, fortunately." But could you imagine if that nurse had had those abilities? She could have been
Yeah.
right there calming him down. He wouldn't have had to have gone on this frantic search hoping to find someone. What if it wasn't me that he'd found?
Right.
So if all the first responders could have these abilities, we'd be in such a better place.
Well, and also in the other direction, the first responders need it, whether they admit it or not, also, because there is a lot of tragedy and bad things out there. And bringing it to the healthcare providers as well
Even
is just
between
as important.
themselves,
Mm-hmm.
even between their colleagues and the
Yep.
things they
It's
experience in
horrible.
that line of work. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm.
lot worse than people ever let on.
Yeah.
Right, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of swallowing that down, and there's a lot of pride in what they do, rightfully so, because there's a lot. I mean, I'm thinking EMTs and paramedics and policemen and firemen. There's a lot that they're at the front line for, and
It's
they
not straightforward. One of my
right.
favorite people is Dan Goyette. He's actually an EMT, but he also runs the Michigan Hypnosis Conference. He's a wonderful hypnotist. And there
Mm-hmm.
are laws that are in place that make it so that he can't practice those beautiful enhancing abilities in the field.
Ain't that some fuck
Yeah,
that. Ain't that some shit? That's
ain't
some
that
dumb
some
shit.
shit?
If I've ever heard some dumb shit before in my life, that's some dumb shit.
Yeah,
I'm
Because
just putting it
it
out
becomes a
there.
liability. That's how they
right.
look at it, and it's such a shame because,
Well,
man, we could reduce the amount of
Ah,
trauma people have through these
dude.
abilities.
they've only just recently been able to get Reiki considered something legitimate enough to
Exactly.
practice in a medical field, and that alone took how long, and to bring something else in there again, it really needs to be a holistic approach with science and medicine and alternative healings, energy work, all of this stuff that you're doing, because you can't just heal one part. You've got mind, body, and spirit, and all you're going to do is, if you heal one part, is set the rest of the other two legs off balance, right? It's a three-legged situation. So
Mhm.
yeah, bringing it into the mainstream is the way to go. And I think people are a little more open now. Maybe not corporations as hospitals and fire departments or whatever, I don't know, but I think people in kind of the general population is a little bit more open, becoming a little bit more.
The thing that I think will make the difference there, and we may as well come back to IEMT because the man who had developed these models is Andy T. Austin or Andrew T. Austin. And I think he is one of those people who is going to make that difference because what is
Good.
happening with IEMT is it is now involved in many, many studies. Even one of the large mainstream universities is currently doing studies on IEMT. And I think that is the way we bring that integration in.
Hmm. Right, approach it as a medical or as a science-based
You
evidence.
gotta find.
Evidence-based science is what everything is built on in the healthcare fields and others like it. So yeah, bring it in that way. Bring it in
Mhm.
that way.
So he's
It's
actually working on that.
Yes. Yes, he's really brought so much awareness to IEMT in the most recent year. Even this past few months, he's recently developed a group for all of the practitioners to brush up on their business skills because whether we like it or not, that is a huge part of what we need to do. You
Hmm.
could be the world's best healer, and if you don't know a bit of business or marketing, you're going to be the world's best secret.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of healers and there's a lot of people in the corners where you don't see them. And people aren't, you could be sitting at a psychic fair and be an amazing, like you, amazing medium, and people are going to be like, Ash, they're at a psychic fair, they're probably fake. And it's like, give it a chance. Give it
Mm,
a chance. I know locally here, there is a practitioner event, which I forget what it is called, but where a bunch of different practitioners of healing and various modalities are all going to be together in a place where the public can come in and just come in and learn and talk to them and see what it's all about. And I mean, that's amazing. And to do more of that would be so wonderful. And just spreading the word. Just spread the word.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Wow. So I am all excited about some IEMT, and I cannot wait to go down that rabbit hole because I'm thinking I need to add that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would be good. Yeah.
I really want to add that. Yeah,
It's a wonderful intervention. It's going to give you so many tools and really open things up for your clients.
good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right, Amanda, number one and foremost, please tell people where they can find you, your podcast, and everything. I mean, we need to know where can we find you?
Well, the names of these things are going to be a shocker, I'm sure. My business name is called Healing Beyond Trauma. I know. And then the podcast is Trauma and Transcendence,
I
because
love that.
often where there is trauma, transcendence can in fact follow. I am absolutely proof of that.
It's
Okay.
beautiful.
All righty. And then what would you want everyone to know today?
Yeah. You really do have all the answers within you. It can take a little bit of heavy lifting sometimes to get to that place, but when you find practitioners like Ronnie, like myself, you get a good reading, someone like Deanna, you're going to get a little bit closer every time until that channel is clear. And then once that channel is clear, you've always got that insight inside you. You are the expert of you, no matter what modality you look at.
That's beautiful.
Couldn't have
Thank you
said
for
it
that.
any better. Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Beautiful woman. You are just phenom.com. Um, I am at a loss at all the good words I want to say about you, but you are just Deanna, she's the real deal, man.
Oh, yeah.
She's one of the best practitioners that I've had the pleasure of working with.
Oh.
So far, she's just I've worked with some really amazing practitioners, but girlfriend, in my opinion, yeah, you got some tricks up those sleeves. That's why I said, okay, let's roll them up. Let's see what else you got underneath there, because girl, you got some things.
I smiled from here to here when I read your email.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's been amazing. We'll talk about that. Um, my session with Amanda actually just happened, what was it, Tuesday, correct, I think? Because today's day 3, so it had to have been Tuesday.
My days are a blur anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and some things came up that I wasn't expecting. I didn't oh, I'm gonna oh, just like the other one, I didn't tell you either because I already knew about it. And I was like, I'm working on it, I got this, whatever. And so, but some things came up, and day 3 I've released. Um, as soon as I got out of the session, I was, my eyesight has already been better. Yes, I'm still wearing my glasses today because we're not done. It's a process. Rome is not built in a day. Um, Anybody who heals knows that healing takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes there's some miraculous things that happen instantaneously, but sometimes there's a journey that somebody has to go through.
Oh, the
And
bigger the work, the longer the process, and it's a matter of just letting it
Not
flow and letting
always.
it do what it's gonna do.
It's not always. It's not a time thing. That's the craziest thing. Yes, we can have trauma in a second, but we can have healing in a second too.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, so Deanna, when I was finished with my session, as soon as I opened my eyes for the post, you know what I'm talking about, that post wrap up, I didn't even need my glasses to see.
That's wonderful.
And I need them all the time. Now, today this screen's a little bit smaller, and but I'm noticing over the past 3 days that it's actually getting better. My phone, I don't need them with every little thing on my phone anymore, and it's just little things, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing. That's all right. I'll follow the raindrops.
That's awesome. That's
I will
great.
follow the sprinkles. And then the other one is really good. I released a big one today, and I'm gonna keep that personal. But that was a big one that I released today, and I gotta tell you, we all know that we need to release our crap, and we all know that we go through things and da 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 da, and how amazing it feels on the other side. But it's really good on the other side, is all I can say. It's really
For me, the kicker was that those things were not the focus of the session. That's not.
no,
Those were the bonus points, right? Those were
yeah,
the unexpected lottery winnings there.
yeah. And everything, I don't even remember. I need to go back and rewatch it, but or re-listen. But yeah, some of the other things that I don't even remember. What did we work on that did fix
There was a
straight away?
lot. Yeah, there was a lot. But I don't want to out anything that you maybe
Yeah.
wouldn't want to. So
Yeah, I forget in the moment.
Well,
So,
we should just encourage people to go to you, Amanda,
dude,
and
I'm
have you
telling
do some
you,
of your magic on people. Not magic, but you know what I
I
mean.
you know what? I have one more question for you out of curiosity before we go. This
yeah.
happens to us. Long Southern goodbyes, honey. We're not too good at that game. Real quick, when somebody comes to you, do you
Mhm.
choose which modality to do and what's going to be in their best interest, or do they have like somebody comes to you for a session and then you're like, I hear what you're saying, but I think this might be better fitted.
Yeah, we have an example just yesterday. Somebody wanted to come because he's had high anxiety, all kinds of difficulties, agoraphobia, this, that, and the other. And he's looking at past life regression. And it's like, oh, okay. But he also didn't know that I did IEMT and he didn't know that there were other approaches available. So it really depends what's coming up. I didn't get the sense that he had any entities. He didn't have any big traumas, as he would call it.
I was going to say, and you just use your intuition to guide them. I
Well,
hear what you're
yes and
saying,
no.
and I got a little bit of
Yeah.
this, in conjunction with.
Yeah. Yes and no. I ask really deep questions. I make sure that I'm not just making assumptions and I double check things with them first. I do believe that he does need a past life regression, but I offer many different kinds. So at that point, it's like, well, let's have a chat about which one would be the ultimate one to get you towards your goal. In this case, it's going to be QHHT. And then I said, and if that doesn't resolve anything, we'll go to IEMT and reduce those triggers down.
Have you
That's
ever felt,
wonderful.
oh yeah, have you ever felt like there was a time then, I guess, of working them all together? Because I was gonna say, I know for a fact, or let me say that differently. I know for me, there's been times where, just one modality just
Yeah.
isn't quite gonna cut it. And
Sometimes
so
you have to
having
shift
some,
gears.
yes, yes. And so having those others in your toolbox, ooh, you're like, I'm so glad I did that after all.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's a game changer to be able to sprinkle in some things.
IMT is not a guaranteed results kind of session. It's very much an exploratory session. Sometimes it's wildly effective for people to the point that it almost seems like magic. I've had times where I'm guiding them and then I ask them to find that impression again and I can see them looking all around the room on the ceiling and I'm like, "No, it's not up there. It's gone."
Hmm.
And they're just like, "Whoa," and they can't believe it. And then there are other times where it just doesn't work to that same degree. And in those moments, it's like, you know what? We're going to shift on over to organic hypnosis and let's have a little bit of introspective fun and see what's happening there. Let's go into the somatic. Let's explore the different avenues.
It's so great.
Sometimes I start with inner child work and it ends up being that I can't get to the inner child because we need to do spirit releasement. And the vice versa. Sometimes we do spirit releasement and then the inner child pops out and wants to be cared for. It's like, okay.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, can people
Yeah.
come to you in person or can they come online or how would somebody get a hold of you or how would they make it? Where would they go for an appointment with you for a
I
session?
have the blessing of being a hybrid, so I do see people virtually, and then I also partner with a very local metaphysical shop that has a healing center. They've got some wonderful resources there, like a float tank and an infrared sauna and an oxygen bar and Reiki room. And so I
Wow.
see my people there too, especially for QHHT because that's in person only.
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
called a creative apothecary, and they've been treating me like family for about 3 years now.
Now, where is it located?
They're
Like
in a tiny little town called Lakemore. It's near Akron, Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. Okay. So if anyone out there is in that area, go see her if you need her.
What's the name
But
of
yeah.
that place again? Creative what?
A creative apothecary.
Creative Apothecary. Thank
Yeah.
you.
They have a whole selection of herbs and books and crystals, and it's home. I just walked in and I knew it.
Sounds
I love that
beautiful. I can
feeling.
almost see it, like just that warm feeling. You can kind of, I don't know, I'm imagining like a small little place, but when you walk in, it's really big. And I don't know,
Yeah.
my mind.
The running joke is it's like the room of requirement because as you go into the building, it just keeps going and going and going. And so there's
See,
actually a
yeah.
salt cave there as
Wow.
well, where I do my Thursday meditations out of. We do group meditations in there. But it's funny, like the building seems so small, but it's deceptive because as you keep going, there are just more rooms and more things.
Like House of Leaves, but positively.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
amazing.
Wow. Well, look, I want to thank you so much for coming on and for talking to us about all this. I have learned so much, and I'm really grateful for your time. I'm really grateful that we're able to get your message out there a bit. And seriously, encourage anyone who's listening, if you're in the area or you go to the website, this sounds like something just, I mean, I might just show up on your list of appointments at some point. Ohio's not that long of a drive for me.
I
So
was thinking, Deanna, it's just south and a tiny bit warmer
I
right
think
now.
yeah, it's like 6 or 8 hours. That's easy enough.
Exactly.
But thank you very much for coming on. We're
Thank you.
very grateful for your time and very grateful that you came to talk to us today.
Thank
So
you so
thank you.
much. And you
Amanda,
are
we're going to
in
put all
wonderful
those.
hands with Ronnie
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in good hands with hers, man. We're going to put all those links in the comments section for you so that people can find you because people do
Mhm.
need to find you, Amanda. Like, I know that you're busy. You're always talking about that you're busy, but honey,
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah. So, yes. Thank you, everyone. Deanna, do you have all the closings? You're so much better at that game than I am. I rely on Deanna for that. She's so great.
As always,
Comment.
if you're watching and you want to leave us a comment, like, share, comment, we do answer, we do read the comments. We are real people. And if you have a talent that you would like to share, or if you have an idea for something you would like to see, please leave a comment. We will definitely look into every suggestion. We will look into every comment. So I think I just said the word comment 4 times in a row, and now it's
That's
five.
okay.
Um, as always, we thank everybody for the
We're here
time and
for
the
you.
energy of coming to see us in our little home here. And just remember, you are loved. So walk a path of bliss and be blessed. And we will see you next time.
Sounds
Bye
good.
bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.